Obviously, you all weren't impressed with my cat video, which I thought was funny. I mean, here, I got another one for you. I'll throw one more joke out, okay? And I want to see how you respond. And some of you have heard it, I think. So you want to know how to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Okay, you laughed. I love it. Good. Good. I thought that was hilarious. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm not all bad jokes, even though my wife says the reason why my jokes are funny is because I think they're funny, so it makes people laugh because I think they're funny. So, all right, I'm going to take a little shift from what we've been doing. We'll be in Titus, but I'm going to, since this is Family Feast, I thought I would not make it as intense. So it'll be an easy day. Martin brought us what carpet he could get us so far. I think we figured out that it's not enough yet to finish the floor, but we're getting some plans together. But thanks for the carpet, Martin. We got that free. That's brand new carpet. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice carpet. Now we have to put Martin to the test and see how innovative he can be with it. But I've seen some of his work, so I'm not really worried about it. As I said earlier, keep Tim in your prayers. Tim may be tied up with this for some time. He's up there with his dad. My hope is that it goes smoothly. It's always hard, I'm sure, to see your father pass. But in this case, his dad was a pastor, and he's even fine. He himself is okay with the idea of going to be with the Lord, which makes it so much nicer. I've been with people who weren't believers who were passing, and it's an entirely different scenario. So keep Tim in your prayers, and don't forget his wife, Kathy. She's going to be at home by herself, and so they're an important group. Let's pray ourselves in again, and we'll get going. Lord, I pray that today you would be glorified by what's done here. I do pray for this ministry. I pray for the people and the families that are involved in this ministry. I pray that whichever direction you're taking them in life, that it would be to their benefit, not materially so much as spiritually. You promise to take care of our needs. I pray, Lord, that as a group of people, we would realize that growing in our relationship with you is the most important thing in our life. So I pray that you keep our children, that you bless them with you. I pray for those in this community that don't know you, that we would learn to become more effective at evangelism, because that's what we're called to do. I pray for those that are struggling with addictions, that you would free them, Lord. And I pray that if it is possible for us to be an influence in their lives, that you would make that happen. Simply to be encouragers and people who would love on them. Again, thank you for what your Son has done for us. And I pray that we learn to live within that salvation that he has given us. Amen. All right, we've been in Titus. And like I said, I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle to this. Instead of focusing heavily on the fact that it is Paul telling Titus how to deal with the church in Crete, how to structure the leadership in the church in Crete, I want to move it in the direction where you see both sides of the fence, because you're going to find in life that leadership skills and leadership requirements are not just needed in organizations or in a church, but the principles apply in your home also. So we're going to look at that in a very loose, very easy structure, and come to conclusions, hopefully, that'll help you change some of the things in your life. Take me to Titus, Alan. Titus chapter 1, 5 through 9. Now, in this text, Titus, Paul is saying this is what you need to look for in leaders in a church. But like I just said to you, your own life, especially, and I'll break it down, especially if you are a father or the dominant male in the family. And no, I'm not saying that guys are better than women. It's just, there's a role that men play in the family, and it's right here. It's also the role that men play in a church. It's right here. I'm using the Message because it's an easier read. I left you in charge in Crete, he's talking to Titus, so you can complete what I left half done. Appoint leaders in every town according to my instructions. As you select them, ask, is this man well thought of? Now, don't move off of that. When you look at yourselves and your life, one of the first questions you should ask yourself is, am I a person in society or in my church that's well thought of? Doesn't mean that you're seen as being the greatest leader or anything, but do people see you and think of you as being a quality person? Am I well thought of? Are his children believers? That matters. Now, there are people that panic when they see this and they think, well, my kids are all grown up now and some of them aren't. Does that disqualify me? Not necessarily, but most definitely your children being believers says a lot about how your family has been operating and how you have lived your life. Do they respect him and stay out of trouble? Again, if you can't manage your home well, there's very slim odds you're going to manage a church well. It is important that a church leader responsible for the affairs in God's house be looked up to, not pushy, not short-tempered, not a drunk, not a bully, not money hungry. He must welcome people. He must be helpful. Don't miss this now. What I'm giving you is a secret to your own family life, not just being in church. Be helpful, wise, fair, reverent, having a good grip on himself, self-control, and having a good grip on the message. Understand what it is you believe, knowing how to use the truth, meaning being able to communicate it, to either spur people on to knowledge, motivator or encourager, or stop them in their tracks, discipline, discipling, stop them. If they oppose it. I suggest if you have issue in your life with any of these things, you start working on it. Not just because, let's say, you want to become an elder in a church, but because you want to be an elder in your home. You want to be a leader in your home. If I were to ask you, and here's the thing, I'll just do it. One of the mistakes people make is they assume that other people's families are better than their families. They'll make assumptions that, and there are people that have better lifestyles than others and better disciplines than others, but you have to deal with this first issue. Every family out there is broken. Every family's got issues. Every church has issues. It is a wrong assumption to think that there's the perfect family and there's the perfect church. It's actually an arrogant assumption if you think about it. Because 9 times out of 10, the people who think that there's a perfect church or a perfect family think they themselves are perfect. It amazes me. In everybody's life, it's funny how many of us think that we're the ones that are always right. So in the family, you probably think that you're the one that has the best solution to everything. In the church, you probably think you have the best solution to everything. It's funny. The problem I've found with most people that think that way, they do not see their own sin or their own incompetence clearly. They just don't see it. They actually believe that they've got it figured out. And I'll give you an example. Now, I'm the head of my family, even over my parents. It's what happened. I don't know why. But what I find fascinating, this is really true. If I take it and really look at it intensely, even though I'm the guy that everybody sees as, well, he's in charge, he's the guy that's always going to step out, and I'm probably the weakest link in the chain. Now, what? Yeah, everybody will call me for counsel. People call to talk to me in the family, my kids, brother calls me, that kind of stuff. But I'm probably the weakest link. And most of the time you wouldn't think that. But the truth of the matter is, I think that one of the stronger links in my family is my wife. Probably the strongest link. And she's the least vocal. I find that fascinating. Now, my point to you is this. If you don't understand that perfection in a family is really out of your reach, if you think you've got it, you are so confused, you're delusional. If you think you've perfected your church or a church model, you're delusional. It's not the case. It was yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. Friday. I blew it across the board in my house. A scenario came up that was negative. I reacted, which intensified the negativity. My grandkids come over. I made these, they weren't big steaks, but they were little steaks, and my grandson wanted to put ketchup on his steak. You can't put ketchup on that. He's 10 years old, right? I'm like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Now, he decided that he was going to buck up and say, no, why can't I put ketchup on my steak? You gave me this, and now I'm mad, and I let everybody know I'm mad, and I let him know I will never cook you another steak. You will never get another one. I get my food, I go to my room and pout like a baby. Now, in my head, at the moment, I was totally justified in my thinking, right? But the truth of the matter is, I made a big deal out of something that wasn't a big deal. Put ketchup on your steak. I really don't care. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. The other argument I started is I couldn't find my glasses, and I let my wife know my disdain for her moving them, which was a mistake because she was ready to fight that day. So now I could have just simply gone and said, oh, well, thanks for telling me where my glasses are, and go get them and go back to what I was doing. But no, I'm in charge. I'm right. Do you see what I'm saying? If you think that you've got it all figured out in your family and you think your family's the best model, you need to relook at yourself, because usually the person who thinks they've got it all figured out is usually the problem, and they just don't know it. It really is true. Humility is one of the greatest definers of understanding you'll ever have in your life. So, having looked at all of what I see in Titus, you've got this requirement for leaders in a church, but that requirement applies in the home. If you go look at the text, the question you have to ask yourself is, how am I perceived? So now think for a minute. How do you see, let's say I bring up family, how do you see your father? Now, they do this in seminars, family seminars. If I were to say to you, in one word, what would define your father? And you were asked that, some of you are going to say, well, my dad was a great guy. I didn't have a dad. My dad was a jerk. My dad was abusive. My dad was kind. My dad was unloving. My dad was loving. You're going to have all these positive and negatives. Each one of you is going to have a different view of who your father is in that family scenario. If I asked you about your mother, if I asked you about your brothers and sisters or your grandparents, you could literally sit down and say, using Titus, by the way, how well did my father line up to this type of man? You know, how well did my mother line up with, let's say, the woman spoken of in Proverbs 13? You know, you could ask yourself, and you would find more often than not, there are negatives that are there. Now, you could be delusional. I've known people that think their parents never did anything wrong. I know of one woman that would never, ever, ever say her parents ever did anything wrong. Yet I know this woman had a terrible childhood. She spent most of it alone. She's delusional. She loves her parents, but the truth of the matter is they were not a biblical standard of what it is to be good parents. So if you look again, bring Titus back up again, Alan, please, if you can. Now pay attention. Look what he says again. Is this man well thought of? Are his children believers? Do they respect him and stay out of trouble? It's important that a church leader responsible for the affairs in God's house. Now think about it. Put it in these terms. As a father in your home, are you looked up to? Are you pushy? Are you short-tempered? Are you a drunk? Are you a bully? Are you greedy? Workaholic could work there, money hungry. Are you welcoming to people? Are you helpful? Are you wise? Are you fair? Are you reverent? Do you have a good grip on yourself? You see it? Now, I can look at this and tell you where I messed up Friday. You know, because there's no question my family sees me as the guy in charge, which means that every action and every word that comes out of my mouth negatively or positively affects them. Now, think for a minute. That applies in a church also. Most people don't take the time to think about their attitudes and their actions. You know why? Because they think they're right. That's the problem. And they usually are breaking people around them and don't even realize they're doing it. This happens in churches. This happens in homes. I believe it was White Christmas. It was Bing Crosby. You can check me on this. His son committed suicide, I think, when the movie came out. Because Bing Crosby was known as being absolutely cruel to his children. While he made that movie, White Christmas, which was all about Christmas and happy. This is critical. Now, but I want to remind you, though, again, I said nobody's perfect. Here's the cool thing about Jesus. Jesus already knows that. He already knows that you're not going to have a perfect family, that you're not a perfect person, and you're not going to have a perfect church, and everybody in your church isn't perfect. He already knows that. And that's where grace comes into play. That's where he comes into play. He will step in and encourage you as an individual to move in the direction you need to move if you're listening to him. If you're resisting him, then the rabbit hole just gets deeper. The more you don't try to apply this stuff in your life and in your church, the deeper it gets. And Jesus keeps saying, look, I love you. I care about you. I want you to find your way through this. I want you to have a better life. But you've got to respond to it. Now, for me, one of the lessons I'm learning as I'm at this stage in my life is God is taking all of the things in my life and he's making me check them again. Okay, Dan, how are you doing here? How are you doing here? What should you change here? You know, what is right? What's wrong? Okay. And I'm being honest with myself. And that's the hard part. Because you sit there and you have to be honest. And then you start going, well, wait a minute. I really am terrible. But then Jesus says, no, wait. No, you're not. You're just doing it wrong. But you're not terrible. I actually love you and care about you. So you're not terrible. But you most definitely need to change certain things. So let's work on it. Because I know a lot of people see this, what I had up there, and they start feeling guilty because they realize they're blowing it. They're blowing it. But God comes along and he says, I want to help you out. Now, let me give you something fun to think about. If you look in your Bible, and you don't have to go there, I'll just throw them out. To verify that families have issues and God is very much involved, let's start with Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve mess up. Adam wants Eve over God, actually. So that seems to be a lifelong problem for most men. We just like the present he gave us. And we'll choose. So he chose Eve over God. You have the first murder happen between two brothers, their children. First murder. Then you have like Abraham, who tells these people, no, that's not my wife, that's my sister, you can have her. Okay? Remember I told you families are not perfect. You have the first probably civil war in history, at least it's the first civil war in the history of Israel, and that was David and Absalom. That was your first civil war. Family issues. And the one I think that's the funniest is Mary and Joseph lost Jesus for 3 days. I think that's hilarious. So you have to understand that there's going to be those imperfections. Again, I can't beat this horse enough. Do not be so arrogant to think that because there's imperfections and you call them out or see them, that somehow you are right. That is a mistake. You may be so imperfect yourself, you don't realize that all you're doing is looking at the imperfections of others and never recognizing your own. So that you got to see it as, and this is what I love about Jesus, you have to see it as a family committed investment. No matter how imperfect the people are in your lives, in your church, in your family, you stay committed to what's true and what's right. You don't just say, oh, well, they're lost cause. They're so dumb. They'll never get brains about them. They keep doing the same stupid thing. That whole thought process is you not realizing the things that you actually are doing wrong. Do you understand that? The best thing to do is be self-observant of your sin and your ungodly behavior and your stupid thinking. It's so much easier for me to drive down the road like the guy today that just stopped in the street and didn't signal until after he stopped. Now, I could have gotten I did good, but I had to lock him up. And my car stops great, by the way. I thought that was fun. It stopped good. But think about it. I could have sat there and gone off on that guy and his decision. Or I could be wiser and more mature and realize me going off on him actually doesn't solve anything. It doesn't, I don't know what his reason was. But when you drive, for instance, you're so busy judging the way everybody else drives, you don't even see how many times you're messing up and the guy behind you is going, what is he, stupid? And you're going, what's this guy in front of me, stupid? Nobody knows. That's what people do in churches. That's what people do in their homes. Think about it. You're so preoccupied with what everybody else is doing wrong that you're not paying attention to the things you're not doing or the things you should be doing or the things you shouldn't be doing. You're not paying attention to your actions. And then when everything falls apart, you sit back and go, well, it was their fault. I can't tell you how many times I do marriage counseling. And I have to listen to that. It's their fault I'm miserable. No, it's your fault you're miserable. You're choosing it. Think about it. Now I go off a tangent. Nobody's perfect. And I didn't want to take long, but you want to hear this. So now think about this. So the family's broken. Believe it or not, when Jesus showed up, Israel's approach to God was broken, right? Jesus shows up and he shows them a whole new approach to what they should believe and how they should believe. He started telling them, no, that's not what God told you back here. This is what you should do. And then he starts doing it with the family and society. It's amazing what Jesus did. During the time of Christ, women and children were property. You had no rights outside of the husband or your brother or your father as a female. The children were the same way. Men owned everything during the time of Christ. What's Jesus do? He shows up, he elevates women, he elevates children. You see that when they tell him, get those kids away from him. And he, no, let those kids come here. He's talking to a Samaritan woman. He's talking all the time with females. He has elevated women and children, and he even elevated slaves because they had so many slaves in that time period. So this guy shows up on the scene and he challenges this one main thought in society: the value of people, the value of an individual. I mean, think about what he did. Gary Smalley did a whole thing on it. It was so good, and it helped me, and I've demonstrated it before where, when he says, when God sees you, he doesn't go, oh, it's you. It's you. Honor. So Jesus tells these people, I'm going to start my church. And this is how you need to think. So we'll start with how you viewed family, and then I'm going to show you how to view church. And he elevated the value of the family, each member of the family, and he elevated the church as a family and gave it immense value. John 17, you see him talking about the value that he has on us. Everything he did was an elevation of value in reference to people. If you don't know this, how many of you know when women actually had legal right to control property on the level that men do in society? For centuries, if your husband died, the brother or the father took control, or the state took control of your property. As a female, you were not allowed to. You ready? It was not until 1918 that females in the United States had almost equal control over property that was owned by their husband. 1918. So Jesus comes on the scene. He would have never agreed to that. He comes on the scene and he elevates the value of people. One of the things that's missing in most churches and most homes, and if you're honest with yourself, you'll see it's an issue. You do not elevate people high enough in what their value is to you and what their value is to Christ. You need to think about that. I drove in today looking at the trees, of course, and I thought to myself, how sad. Beautiful trees, right? Beautiful sunshine. How sad the state of mind is in society in reference to how we view the value of people. I literally know that there are people that would look at something like a tree or the moon or a lake or an ocean and go, that's just beautiful. I also know the bulk of you look at other people and go, I wish God would just kill them. Yet Jesus clearly clarified that human beings have greater value than the creation itself. He did it all the way back when he created everything. And when he created Adam and Eve, he said, very good. I'm sounding like Joe Biden now. I whispered. That was funny to me. I'm sorry. Very, very good. Dude, think about it. Very good. He was like, I made all this other stuff, these planets and the universe. This stuff's good. But people? And then Jesus shows up and he says it again. I'm going to die for you because your value is that immense. And then he says to us, you be like me. I'll wrap up. You be like me. You think like me. I don't care how many bells or whistles or programs you put in place to do a church or grow a church or to try and make your family successful. I'm telling you flat out, if you miss this element that you are to be like Christ, think like Christ, do things like Christ would do. If you miss that, you've missed it. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how big your church is, or if you've missed the most important thing. You've missed it. Take me to Ephesians, Alan, please. Watch what God does. And then you do it. Like children who learn proper behavior from their parents. Mostly what God does is love you. Did you see that? Keep company with him. Learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something. Please remember that. He didn't love to get something from us, but to give everything of himself to us. Love like that. An elder in a church, a leader in a home, mother or father, there it is. There it is. They're going to remember, and if I ask you the same question, and I'm going to, they're going to remember that action from you more than they will remember anything else you said to them. If I were to ask each and every one of you who actually were able to spend time with a father or a mother or even a grandparent, what the best time was you had with them, more than likely or not, you're going to remember. I remember the best time I had with my dad. I remember a number of them. I remember the first time I saw my dad gut laugh is when they came out with water slides and he went down one, and I actually, first time I'd ever seen my dad gut laugh. My dad never laughed. He's a nice man, but my dad didn't know how to gut laugh until I saw him go down the water slide. And then we went up, we took a canoe against the current up a river and hardly got anywhere, but he was willing to let me do it. I wanted to fight the river and go up. We made it probably 20 feet. But though I remember that. I don't want to sit there and go, well, the things I remember about my mother and father is that they were just jerks all the time, or that they were obsessed with money all the time. No, I want to be, and as a pastor, I want everybody that knows me to say, I really like Dan. Dan was a great guy. I don't want anybody walking around going, that guy was such a jerk, which some of you may, but think about it. What do you want to be remembered for? Why would you not want to be like God? Take me to Ephesians again, Ephesians 4. Since then, we do not have the excuse of ignorance. Everything, and I do mean everything, connected with the old way of life has to go. Stop living in your sin. It's got to go. It's got to go. You need to be moving in the direction of being like the man spoken of in Titus. You need to be moving in the direction of being like the God that we serve. It's got to go. Look, it's rotten through and through. Get rid of it. And then take on an entirely new way of life, a good-fashioned life, a God-fashioned life. Yeah, I can see I didn't see that right. A life renewed from the inside, a working itself into your conduct, and working itself into your conduct as God accurately reproduces his character in you. I can't make that any more clear. You need to applaud the guy that did this translation, because that's good. And that's what it means. That's where we're supposed to be going. I don't care how pretty you make something look. I mean, think about it. I wore nice clothes today, but I'm still the ugly guy underneath. I'm saying I don't care how much you candy coat it. If it isn't changed on the inside, it doesn't matter what it looks on the outside. I don't care how big your church is. I know churches that on the outside look fabulous, but I've been in the back rooms with the leaders of that church, and they're wicked men. Same in homes. I know people that can give you a glorious looking house, nice cars, but in their home, they're not what you see. You want to pursue Christ likeness. You'll never hit perfection. Never happen. But you never, ever give up on working on being the kind of person that in your community you're respected, even by your enemies. You're respected and loved by your family. You can't lose with that stuff. I don't care whatever else happens. I've known people that were dirt poor, couldn't hardly read or write, people that were some of the most influential people I've ever met. I mean, the world has you thinking opposite. Everything that's going on here, even in this church, and I love this about God. I'll wrap up with it. This is what he does. And he's instructing us to do this. So stay with me here. You should love as he loves. Now, he can't make it any more clear to you that he is fully invested in you. He really does love you. But to add to that, because people go, oh yeah, okay, God loves me, but you should be teaching as he teaches. That means your communication should be like his. You should, it's funny. My son's wife, my son's going to be 40. I can't ever remember his birthday. But he's going to be 40 anytime now. And his wife said to me last time we were together that he's becoming more and more like me. Now, there's two things to that. There's the negative that she was talking about, and then there's the positive. But if you're walking with Christ, you should be becoming more and more like him. People should actually be saying that. They should see it. So you should teach as he teaches. You should serve as he serves. Now, I want you to think about that. Because it's real easy to look at what everybody else isn't doing and fail to recognize that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You should serve as he serves. And here's what amazes me, the unbelievable sacrifices Christ made just to give you an inkling of understanding, just to give you the ability to live. I mean, just go look at all that he did in 3 years. 3 years. Because he served. You need to be a leader in your home, your community, your church, and you need to do it as he would do it. I think that's enough for you. I just want to say this. Everybody in this church, as small as it is, if I don't see spiritual growth going on in our lives and in our church, then there's a disconnect. Doesn't mean God's against us. He's never against us. He's always for us. He's always working for us. He's always trying to communicate to us that he's for us, that he wants to move us in a direction that's conducive as a church. He does that in your families. He will always try and get you to understand that this is something you don't want in your home. This is something you want in your home. This is something you don't want in your church. He does it all the time. Become listeners and doers. This church has the ability and has done many things for the cause of Christ. I don't see your daily lives, but I know for a fact that some of you live out your Christian faith and it has an effect on other people. I know some of you don't care how you live, and it's having a negative effect on everyone. I know in my life, even when you don't see it, there are people I am ministering to all the time. We need to be people who think in terms of, am I doing right now what God would want me to do right now? How committed am I to the things of God? How willing am I to sacrifice my selfishness and my ideas for his ideas? All of those things need to keep popping up. And if you're going to be in church leadership or leadership in your home, you better get to the point that you're willing to submit yourself to the authority of Christ in your life. Now, Friday, I got rebuked by God. I'm glad my wife didn't keep kicking my teeth in. She could have. But I was doing a pretty good job of kicking my own teeth in. I want to be known as a church that follows Christ. I don't want to compromise with that anymore. I also want to be known as a father and a husband that follows Christ. And I want everybody who knows me to say that person follows Christ. That's the goal for all of us. That's it. And I'm hoping you get the point. That's enough. Let's pray ourselves out. Lord, I'm grateful that you are my Father, that you are the one who has my best interests in mind all the time. I pray, Lord, that in the lives of all of us in this body of believers, that obedience would become an important thing to us, that living out our Christian faith and representing you as our Father would be the most important thing to us. I pray as that you continue to meet our needs, that you would continue to develop out right thinking, that we would learn that you are the one who provides, that we would learn that you are asking for us to conform to the image of your Son, that we would learn the answer is you. I pray, Lord, that this would be an effective message that you gave us today, and I pray that it would touch us and change us. And thank you so very much. Amen. You're free to go or eat more or talk more. It's up to you.